If there is even one example of anyone in the entire Bible who got saved without baptism, it would show that baptism is not really necessary for salvation.
Baptism was instituted by Jesus Christ, following his own baptism by John the Baptist, and it was further established through the Great Commission where Jesus commanded his disciples to baptize. John's role: he baptized people under Christ in the Jordan River in preparation of the Messiah. Baptism was considered a central part of his message. Jesus, our example, was baptized by him. Baptism is the gospel enacted, 1 Corinthians 15, 3-4, and reenacted, Romans 6, 3-4.
And is there one? Well, not just one, there's countless. Firstly, all the believers in the Old Testament got saved without baptism.
While the New Testament practice of baptism isn't explicitly detailed in the Old Testament, there are several significant events foreshadowing it, including Noah's flood, salvation through water, the Jews crossing the Red Sea, liberation from bondage, the crossing of the Jordan River, entering the Promised Land, and Naaman's cleansing in the Jordan, all symbolizing purification, judgment, and a new life through water. Here listed are key examples and foreshadowing, such as Noah and the Ark, saved by water, crossing of the Red Sea, going to freedom through baptism, the crossing of the Jordan River, going into a promised land, Naaman's cleansing through water, etc. These events through water symbolize deliverance from sin and death, entrance into God's covenant people, and spiritual cleansing, all pointing to the meaning of Christian baptism.
Second example is the thief on the cross.
Does the salvation of the thief mean that we can ignore the Lord's command to be baptized for the remission of sins? Mark 16:16, Acts 2:38, 1 Peter 3:21. The example of the thief on the cross is not for us to follow today because there are many differences between the thief and those who live since Jesus died on the cross. First, the thief was probably a Jew, one of God's chosen people under the Old Testament. Genesis 12, 1-3. Deuteronomy 7, 6-8. He was born into a covenant relationship with God. Therefore, he was already a child of God. But he was a child of God who had strayed into sin. He only needed to repent and he would be forgiven. The case of the thief is the same as that of several other Jews whose sins were forgiven by the Lord when he was on the earth. Mark 2, 1-12. Luke 7:36-50, Luke 19, 1-10. We today do not live under the Old Testament law. We live under the law of Christ. The Old Testament law was nailed to the cross, Colossians 2:14. This means that it ceased to be God's law to govern his people at the time Jesus died. For the priesthood being changed, there is made of necessity a change also of the law, Hebrews 7:12. Paul wrote to the Galatians, so that the law has become our tutor to bring us unto Christ, that we might be justified by faith. But now that faith has come, we are no longer under a tutor. Galatians 3:24-25. If anyone is saved today, it must be according to the conditions found in the New Testament. Second, the thief was saved before the Great Commission was given. This was given by Jesus to his apostles shortly before he went back to heaven. He commanded them to preach the gospel to the whole world, every nation, and every creature. Those who heard and believed the gospel, repented of their sins and were baptized, would be saved. Those who refused would be lost. Matthew 28, 19-20, Mark 16, 15-16. The thief was not required to obey the terms of the Great Commission because he died before it was given. But you and I, and all men today, must obey these terms if we want to be saved.